18 poets can come up with such a variety. We have men and women represented, young and not so young represented, and a lot of different personalities and emotions that reflect in these poems. In opening, I'd like to share with you a quote from the poet laureate Joseph Brodsky, who said in his inaugural speech to Congress in 1991 that poetry books should be brought to the doorstep like electricity or like milk in England. They should be considered utilities, and their cost should be appropriately minimal. Today we offer you just that, poetry that is free for the listening. So have open hearts and open ears and welcome the poets. The first gentleman represented, Alan Cook, was not able to be with us today, so I'll take the liberty of reading his poem entitled The Battle. Perhaps it's done in search of glory, this constant battle to expand, to gain the other's territory that pits the sea against the land. The sea sends raiding parties, waves with artillery that pound the shore. They capture sand, creating caves and cliffs that soon will stand no more. The land, more subtle, transports dirt down rivers for 1,000 miles, and softly, so it doesn't hurt, fills coves and bays with muddy piles. Perhaps the motive's base-born greed. Too much of something's not enough. The only way to win is bleed your opponent dry and take his stuff. Or maybe they cite history. This was my territory once, the sea will say. It must be free. The land replies, I must expand. My plants and animals need room to grow. My fish are stifled, ocean rants. My whales will have no place to go. But maybe nobler motives rule. My God has told me what to do, one says. The other says, you fool. It's I who tread the path that's true. And so the battle rages on. Dusk to dusk and dawn to dawn. And it will endlessly repeat.
Good afternoon. I'm Ruth Adams, and I'm going to read two of my poems. The first one is called Tide Pools. Now is the time of ebb tide, and the sea forsakes the rocks it has forever gnawed, to leave them littered with a bright debris of jetsam, soaked in brine, wave-tossed and pawed. Come, let us climb among the slippery stones. Are you afraid? Then let me take your hand. Within this mass of ocean's ancient bones, we'll find an unexpected wonderland. For we shall kneel upon a tide pool's rim, gaze in silence where the purple urchins grow, past pale anemones where light is dim, and bustling hermit crabs cross to and fro. Listen, the sea hurls challenge to the shore, but soft the procreant pulse beats evermore. 3 at the sea. Thomas and Stephen and Frances Ann went down to the shimmering bay. Tom took a pillowy inner tube and happily floated away. Steve built a castle 3 feet high with a flag that flapped in the air. But Fran took her yellow pail down to the sea and dipped for the minnows there. Tommy came home with a sunburned nose. Steve had sand in his shoes, but Francie's pail held miniature fish, alive with the rainbow's hues. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Abigail Derecho. I'm from San Francisco now. I'm going to read two of my poems. The first one is called Reconcile. I pulled a sprig of dust from my hair. It was near the ocean, and I had never heard wind so restful, content with itself. The cliffs had survived a century of waves, and then the waves called a halt, retreated, looked over their reeking and left it. Now the cliffs and the sea and the wind, they have made a peace, and my skin and my soul have made a peace, and my love and my honor have made a peace, and together the sun binds us and calls each one a fool for the fighting. This next poem is called When I Die. Perhaps I shall imagine that birds with yellow tails flaunt their wings before me, that 3 children paddle their raft to shore, where I read poems and you wear a green shirt, and we are so young and you demand this promise from me, that whenever I make love next to the Pacific Ocean, I think of you, and I will have honored that promise all the years of my life.
Good afternoon. My name is Lois Knight LaRue. This is the 5th anniversary of Poetry by the Sea. And last year, the topic was Palos Verdes skies. One of the pleasures of my life was deciding to write about Ruby Hale Field, who could fly an aeroplane. And the poem I told you about last year ended with Ruby Hale Field approaching the age of 101, saying, "Flying is fun." Ruby Hale Field didn't reach her 101st birthday this year, but she's in our hearts and probably with us this afternoon. The other person I would like to pay credit to is she used to fly a Beech aircraft, not a helicopter. The other person is Pearl Hornbach, the producer of this series. She's also an artist, and she happens to be my neighbor where I live in Upper Abalone Cove. She lives in Lower Abalone Cove. And so it was a great honor for me when she said that she wanted to have a poem read this afternoon, and would I read it? Would I? Here it is, by Pearl Hornbach. The Eye of the Lobster. Have you ever looked into the eyes of a lobster? A live lobster at peace on his own rocky front porch, all unaware of you, the hungry hunter, floating silently, hidden by swaying amber fronds of the sea fern, bobbing just below the surface of his quiet water world. The lobster's 2 coppery antennae wave gently, vibrating, monitoring the currents of the ocean's floor for tasty snacks or an enemy. Here, food is rarely given without a struggle. Stilted legs balance on point. Powerful fantail on full alert. No creative ideas blossom in his tiny crustacean brain, nor does he fret about the cost of gasoline or dining out, for His realm is devoid of shopping malls. And what above the high tide line passes for civilization? No, the spiny lobster simply is. Rocking with the groundswell, you hover above the prey, dreaming, imagining him dropping into the steaming pot, shell turning a rich red, so appetizing on a bed of parsley. A china bowl of melted butter gleams golden in the candle shine. Fingers curl around a chilled flute of bubbly champagne. Salivating as your fork slips into the pearly, fragrant flesh, a sudden surge brings you back to the job at hand. Cautionary parting the seaweed, a gourmet's delight, the target. The hunter slowly hefts his spear gun, takes careful aim. Just then, one of the stalk eyes of the lobster swivels upward. The goggles of Earth meet the opaline pupil of Neptune's child. For 1 nanosecond, they know one another. A puff white sand roils the calm water of the creature's lair. The deadly spear burrows into the ocean bottom, quivering, empty. Lobsters are not fools, and they can be lightning quick. There will be no remorse for denying the alien his festive meal. Missed again, O mighty hunter. Did you do it on purpose? Perhaps sensing in that brief eye contact an ancient kinship? Oh, well, there's always McDonald's. I was invited to write a poem this year on where the land meets the sea. And I gave a copy to each of the city council members in Rancho Palos Verdes and told them, having written this poem, I expected to be disinvited. I received a telephone call from Pearl Hornback. I called her back and she said, "You didn't put a title on your poem." Whew. I thought she was calling to disinvite me. But I asked her if I could use the topic which everybody's dealing with this year, where the land meets the sea. And if you listen carefully, what I'm going to do this afternoon is the entire history of the Portuguese Bend landslide. It just happens that in the audience is my beloved son, who is the geologist who discovered in 1974 that the Abalone Cove landslide was moving again. And so, with your permission, I would like to dedicate this poem to my son, because I read it to him and he told me this is geologically correct. This is the saga